I can still remember the exact moment my family made me feel like I no longer belonged in my own home. My name is Mira Ndlovu. I am 29 years old, and 3 years ago a drunk driver changed my life forever. The accident damaged my spine, and since that day I have used a wheelchair. I thought surviving the crash would be the hardest part, but I was wrong. The hardest part was watching the people I loved slowly become ashamed of me. On the morning of my younger brother Zuberi's engagement celebration, my mother came into my room. She did not ask how I was feeling or whether I wanted to join the family. Instead, she quietly said, "Please stay upstairs until the important guests leave. We don't want people asking uncomfortable questions." Her words hurt more than any injury ever could. I forced a smile because I had spent years pretending their cruelty no longer affected me. From my room, I could hear laughter, music, and happy voices while I sat alone, hidden like a secret nobody wanted to see. But my family had no idea that one of those important guests was not coming to celebrate my brother. He had come looking for me. Before that day ended, the richest and most powerful man in the room would stand in front of everyone and ask for only one signature. Mine. Before the accident, my life was completely different. I was the person everyone in my family was proud of. I worked as an architect, and I loved creating eco-friendly homes that were affordable, beautiful, and safe for families. My parents proudly introduced me to relatives, and my younger brother often asked for my advice on his own work. I truly believed that no matter what happened, my family would always stand beside me. But one terrible night changed everything. A drunk driver crashed into my car and damaged my spine. When I woke up in the hospital, the doctors told me I would never walk again. I thought my family would help me through the hardest time of my life. Instead, they slowly pushed me out of theirs. At first, they stopped asking for my opinions about the family business. Then they stopped inviting me to important meetings. Later, they removed my pictures from the living room walls and replaced them with new family photos that did not include me. Whenever visitors came to our house, my mother would quietly ask me to stay in my room because she did not want people asking questions about my wheelchair. My father even apologized to guests whenever they saw me, as if I had done something wrong. Every small moment made me feel less like a daughter and more like a problem they wished would disappear. Only one person never treated me that way. My grandfather, Jabali Ndlovu, looked at me exactly the same as he always had. He never felt sorry for me. He believed in me. Every time I started losing hope, he would smile and say, "Your legs stopped walking, your purpose never did." Those words became the only thing keeping me strong. A few weeks before he passed away, he called me into his room and handed me an old leather notebook. He told me to keep it safe and never throw it away, no matter what happened. I asked him why it was so important, but he only smiled. At the time, I thought it was just a memory of him. I had no idea that one small notebook would one day change my entire life. Later that afternoon, I finally came downstairs after my mother said it was okay for me to join the guests. The house was full of expensive decorations, beautiful flowers, and smiling relatives. Everyone was celebrating my younger brother Zuberi's engagement. People kept congratulating him, not only for getting engaged, but also for becoming a famous architect. One guest after another praised him for designing an award-winning community housing project that had recently attracted national investors. They called him a genius. They said he was making our family proud. My parents stood beside him with huge smiles on their faces, enjoying every compliment that came his way. A large projector was placed in the middle of the room. Zuberi proudly walked onto the stage and began showing everyone his housing designs. The guests clapped as one blueprint appeared after another. At first, I tried not to pay much attention. But then one drawing caught my eye. My heart suddenly started beating faster. I had seen that design before. I knew every line, every window, every roof shape, and every small detail. I quickly remembered Grandpa Jabali's old leather notebook that I had kept safely in my room. The drawings on the screen looked exactly like the sketches inside that notebook. It was not just one idea. Every single blueprint matched Grandpa's work. Even the smallest engineering details were the same. The placement of the gardens, the natural cooling system, the rainwater collection design, and the special layout for families were all identical. I stared at the screen without saying a word. My hands began to shake. This could not be a coincidence. There was no way two people could create the exact same designs with every tiny detail perfectly matching. Questions filled my mind. Had Grandpa secretly designed this entire project years ago? If he had, then why was everyone praising Zuberi? And if Grandpa was the real creator, then only one answer made sense. Someone had stolen everything, and my own family was standing there proudly celebrating the lie. After seeing the blueprints on the screen, I could not stay inside the crowded room anymore. My mind was full of questions, and I needed a moment to think. While everyone laughed, danced, and congratulated Zuberi, I quietly wheeled myself toward the garden behind the house. The cool evening air helped me calm down. The garden was peaceful, far away from the loud music and happy voices. As I looked around, I noticed an elderly man standing near a small fountain, gently feeding a few birds. He smiled when he saw me and politely greeted me. "My name is Kofi Mensah," he said. He did not stare at my wheelchair like most people did. He did not ask what had happened to me or tell me how sorry he was. Instead, he asked, "I heard your family works in architecture. Do you enjoy designing buildings too?" His question surprised me. It had been years since anyone had asked about my work instead of my disability. I smiled for the first time that day and told him I had once designed eco-friendly homes before my accident. His eyes became brighter as we talked. We discussed affordable housing, natural lighting, rainwater collection, and simple ways to build strong homes that families could actually afford. He listened carefully to every idea I shared. He even asked for my opinion on a few design problems. For almost 20 minutes, I forgot about my family, my wheelchair, and the pain I had been carrying for years. Then the music inside the house became quieter as someone announced that the speeches were about to begin. Kofi slowly stood up and looked at me with a calm smile. Before walking away, he quietly said, "Sometimes the wrong person receives applause, but not forever." His words stayed in my mind as I watched him return to the house. I had no idea who he really was or why he seemed so interested in me. But somehow, I felt that meeting him was about to change my life forever. I slowly followed Kofi back into the ballroom, still thinking about the strange conversation we had just shared. As soon as he entered the room, everything changed. The host quickly walked onto the stage and welcomed him with great respect. He announced that Kofi Mensah was the billionaire founder and CEO of one of the biggest housing foundations in Africa. His organization was preparing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into affordable housing projects that could help thousands of families. The moment people heard his name, the room filled with surprise. Everyone stood up and clapped. My parents rushed toward him with bright smiles. My brother Zuberi proudly introduced himself, believing this was his chance to impress such an important man. Relatives crowded around Kofi, hoping to shake his hand or say a few words. They all believed he had come to celebrate Zuberi's success. My parents looked happier than I had seen them in years. They were already acting as if our family had secured a huge partnership. Then something happened that nobody expected. Before anyone could continue speaking, Kofi politely raised his hand and stopped the ceremony. The room became completely quiet. Without saying another word, he walked away from the stage and moved through the crowd. Every person stepped aside as he came closer and closer to me. I looked around, wondering if he was walking toward someone behind me. But he stopped directly in front of my wheelchair. With a warm smile, he looked into my eyes and said, "Miss Ndlova, may I finally have your signature?" For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The entire ballroom fell silent. Then my family laughed nervously. My mother quickly apologized and said, "I think there has been a misunderstanding. You probably mean my son, Zuberi." Kofi calmly shook his head. He reached into his briefcase and placed an official partnership agreement on the table. Then he gently turned the document toward me. The agreement was not written. For my brother, that night, I could not stop thinking about everything that had happened. Kofi's words, the partnership agreement, and the blueprints on the screen kept running through my mind. As soon as I reached my room, I took Grandpa Jabali's old leather notebook from the drawer where I had kept it for years. I slowly turned each page again, looking more carefully than ever before. Then I noticed something I had never seen. The back cover felt thicker than before. When I gently opened it, I found a sealed envelope hidden inside. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were several old letters, engineering calculations, official papers, and documents with dates going back many years. There were also witness signatures proving that Grandpa had created these housing designs long before anyone had heard Zuberi's name connected to them. Every paper showed how carefully Grandpa had planned the project. The notebook was not just a collection of ideas. It was proof that the designs truly belonged to him. A few minutes later, Kofi called me. He calmly explained everything. He told me that he and Grandpa had worked together in secret for many years to develop affordable housing systems that could help families across Africa. They wanted the project to be completed by someone who truly understood its purpose, not someone who only wanted fame or money. Then Kofi repeated the words Grandpa had told him many times. If anything happens to me, only Mira understands these designs well enough to finish them. Tears filled my eyes as I listened. Grandpa had trusted me all along. He had chosen me years before my accident, when I was still working as an architect. My wheelchair had never changed his decision. My family believed I had become weak after the accident, but Grandpa never stopped believing in me. At that moment, I finally understood why he had protected that notebook so carefully and why he had asked me to never let it go. Everything changed within a few days. The truth about Grandpa's notebook and the original housing designs spread much faster than anyone expected. Investors carefully reviewed the documents and quickly realized that the project presented by Zuberi was not his own work. One by one, they pulled their support from his proposal. Meetings were canceled, business partners stopped calling, and the people who had praised him only days earlier suddenly became silent. The success my family had proudly celebrated began falling apart. At the same time, something even stranger happened. The relatives who had ignored me for years suddenly remembered my phone number. My phone rang every day. People who never visited me now wanted to check on me. They called me kind, talented, and strong, as if they had always believed in me. I knew the truth. Nothing about me had changed. Only the situation had. My mother came into my room with tears in her eyes. She held my hands and softly said, "We only protected you because we loved you." My father nodded and added, "Everything we did was for your own confidence. We never wanted you to feel uncomfortable." I listened quietly because I remembered every time they asked me to hide whenever guests visited. Their words did not match their actions. Later that evening, Zuberi came to see me alone. For the first time in years, he looked frightened instead of confident. He admitted that after Grandpa passed away, he had found the original notebook and copied many of the housing designs. He believed no one would ever question where the ideas came from because Grandpa was gone, and everyone already trusted him as the family's successful architect. He begged me not to expose him publicly and said he had never expected the truth to come out. As I looked at him, I finally understood what my family feared most. It was not the money they were losing. It was the perfect image they had spent years building. They were afraid the world would finally see who they really were. A few days later, Kofi invited me to a private board meeting at his company's headquarters. I had never been inside such a large meeting room before. Around the long table sat experienced executives, engineers, lawyers, and project leaders. Everyone greeted me with respect, something I had not felt in a very long time. I wondered why all of these important people had gathered for a meeting that seemed to be about me. When everyone was seated, Kofi stood up and said there was one more thing I needed to see. He dimmed the lights and turned on a large screen at the front of the room. A video began to play. The moment I saw the face on the screen, tears filled my eyes. It was my grandfather, Jabali. The recording had been made only a short time before he passed away. Grandpa looked directly into the camera with the same calm smile I remembered. Then he said, "If you're watching this, then they finally underestimated the wrong granddaughter." The room became completely quiet as everyone listened. Grandpa explained that he had carefully documented every housing design, every business meeting, every engineering calculation, and every signature connected to the project. He said he never wanted the truth to depend on people's memories because memories can be changed, but written proof cannot. He explained that he did not prepare the documents to destroy our family. He loved them too much for that. He created the records for one simple reason. He wanted to make sure the truth could never be buried, no matter who tried to hide it. Then Grandpa looked into the camera one last time and smiled. He said he always believed I would finish the work with honesty, kindness, and courage. When the video ended, nobody spoke. The entire room sat in silence. I looked around and saw that even the experienced executives had tears in their eyes. At that moment, I realized Grandpa had planned everything carefully. Even after he was gone, he had found a way to protect both the truth and the granddaughter he never stopped believing in. Months passed, and my life changed in ways I never imagined. With Kofi's support and Grandpa's vision to guide me, I became the leader of the biggest community housing project in the company's history. Every day, I worked with a team that shared the same dream of building safe, affordable homes for families who needed them most. But I wanted this project to be different in another way too. I remembered how people had judged me after my accident, so I decided that nobody would be overlooked because of disability, age, or background. I started hiring talented disabled engineers who had been rejected by other companies. I gave opportunities to young architects who had excellent ideas but had never been given a real chance. I also welcomed graduates who had been turned away simply because they lacked experience or because someone had underestimated them. I cared more about honesty, hard work, and talent than perfect resumes. Slowly, our team became stronger than anyone expected. The housing project grew quickly, and thousands of families finally received safe homes. People stopped talking about my wheelchair. Instead, they talked about the lives that were changing because of our work. Newspapers, television stations, and online interviews began sharing our story. During one interview, a reporter introduced me by saying, "This is the visionary changing lives across the continent." When I heard those words, I quietly thought about Grandpa and smiled. One evening, my parents watched one of those interviews on television from their living room. They sat in silence as reporters praised the daughter they had once hidden upstairs whenever important guests visited. Now the whole country knew my name. The woman they had called a burden had become a respected leader. They could no longer pretend I did not exist. The daughter they once tried to keep invisible had become impossible to ignore, and this time, nobody could take the credit away from her daughter. A few weeks after the first families moved into their new homes, I returned alone to my grandfather Jabali's favorite hill overlooking the city. It was the place where he used to sit for hours, dreaming about a future where every family could have a safe place to live. The wind was gentle, and from the top of the hill I could see the neighborhoods that had once existed only as drawings inside his old notebook. I placed Grandpa's worn leather notebook on the grass, beside a fresh set of architectural plans that my team and I had created together. I looked at the notebook for a long time and smiled. I no longer needed it to guide my work. The lessons inside it had already become part of who I was. At last, I understood why Grandpa had trusted me with it all those years ago. His greatest gift was never the blueprints, the calculations, or the business documents. His greatest gift was his belief in me. Even when everyone else saw weakness, he saw strength. Even when others gave up on me, he never did. Later that day, hundreds of people gathered for the opening of our newest housing project. Families, engineers, workers, students, and community leaders stood together, waiting for the ceremony to begin. As I rolled onto the stage, the crowd welcomed me with warm applause. Behind me, a large sign was uncovered. It read, "The Jabali Initiative." The project was created in my grandfather's honor, with one simple purpose: to give families a stronger foundation, not just stronger buildings. As I looked across the crowd, I quietly smiled. Years ago, my own family called me a burden because I could not stand on my feet. They believed my life had lost its purpose. Today, thousands of people were standing inside homes built from the dream my grandfather and I shared. Entire communities were standing stronger because I never gave up on myself, even when others did.